Hey everybody, welcome to Monday Night Live in Lexington, you guys. My name is Kathryn Kauffman, and I'm a psychic medium here in Lexington, Kentucky. Welcome to my every Monday night live show here on Facebook. All of these Monday night live shows are going to be loaded up onto my YouTube channel, and I will put a link to the YouTube channel in the comment section on my personal page on Facebook and the professional page, so that you can go back and watch all the past episodes of this Facebook live stream show if you want. So hey to Carolyn, Melissa, Stormy, Sam and Paula Bolin, Chantal, Ted, Ronald, Andrea, Ashley, and Melissa. Thanks for joining me tonight. We'll do some more shout outs as everybody gets logged on and gets all their notifications. Much love back to Miss Cleo and Melissa Begley, two of my favorite girls in the whole world. Hey to Andrea, Paige, Tracy, and yes, I'm glad you made it on tonight, Chantal. It's been a while since I've seen you, so I missed you. Hey to Doug King. Hey, and Joanne Small. Thanks for the hugs and the hearts. As always, howdy to my Instagram people over here. And just so you know, for Instagram, I won't be able to see your comments. You have to kind of be on the Facebook stream for me to see the comments. Hey to Jared Sloan. And Declan Howe. Thanks for joining me. Hey to George McKinney. Hey, George. And Jenny Miter. So tonight's topic is going to be what happens when we die. And, you know, we're mainly concerned with not the physiological thing of dying, although we're going to go into that tonight. Hey to Jim Pioski and Rolando Berger and Denise Oddie. Thanks for joining me tonight. And Shelley Holden Brock. Hey to Dave Spinks. So what I was doing when I was looking at all my research is I'm noticing correlations between the actual process of dying. Also noticing correlations between out-of-body experience, the process of dying, and what actually happens after death and that kind of thing. So tonight's topic, hey to Nikki Gaspard. Tonight's topic was requested by one of my fans, and so I told them that I would especially go over this for them. And that way, we can save the material on the YouTube channel and go back and people can rewatch it, or you can share it, or, you know, and that kind of thing. Hey to Tricia Langley and Stacy Curry Wilhoit and Autumn Law and Kathy Nance. Elena Black, hey to you, and Christy Annette Stump. So let's go over the process of dying. And if any of you have been with somebody who's in the process of passing, you probably experienced this or noticed it. Unfortunately, this is not an area that we teach a lot, that we should probably in nursing in the medical field. If we have the information there, I think that a lot of people could really benefit from knowing the process of how a person, the stages of dying and how a person passes. So clinical death is the cessation of all vital bodily functions. So that is pretty much everything, the ceasing of everything. But when a person begins into this process, the first thing that you're going to notice is a decreased motor function. And if anybody has any questions about this, please feel free to put it in the comment section on my personal Facebook page, and I'll be glad to answer whatever I can for you. Now, for those of you that don't know, I was an ICU nurse for 20 some odd years. And so as nurses, we witnessed this firsthand. So first is the decrease in motor function. The second thing that we notice in a natural state, because, you know, in the medical field, we're doing things that prevent a person from passing. So we don't really get to see a natural state of passing all the time. But loss of appetite is a quite natural thing that occurs when a person enters into those processes of death. They're going to slowly lose their appetite, and it really doesn't benefit the person that much to try to push food on them, because it's a natural process of the body kind of shutting down. You're also going to notice a lot of excessive sleep and disconnection, and that kind of goes with some of the things that we're looking at in near-death experiences and out-of-body experiences. It's the disconnection from the physical world, where they're sleeping more and they're kind of staring out into space, and they're really transitioning. And so when they're staring out into space, what's kind of happening is that soul energy is sort of fluxing out of the body and back in. It's almost like practicing for the actual leaving. So you're going to notice that disconnection. And a lot of times, and this is just my personal experience in dealing with patients, when they're staring out into space, way past you, you almost have to really get down in their face and say, okay, look at me. Come back to me and look at me. And so then they switch their focus from the beyond to you. So disconnection is a big part of this dying process. You're going to also notice increased weakness. Let me check for questions just to make sure I haven't missed any. Let's see, Terry Todd had a question. Yes, Terry, I did have an NDE, and I guess from what you're saying, you did too during surgery. So NDEs are just kind of short for near-death experience. Also, Terry, I am a medium, so over the last 30 years of doing mediumship and communicating with spirits who've passed on, if there's a really good connection and there's a really good flow of information during a mediumship, I've been able to kind of interject questions for myself, for my own benefit, for my own knowledge. And so part of what I'm presenting you tonight and the next episode, because this is going to probably take a couple episodes, are my experiences in my realm as being a professional medium. So yes, NDEs definitely, you can speak to that. So Dawn Johnson has a question. So her daughter's vagus nerve was pulsing before she passed on. Yes, so the cessation of that was the clinical death. It's all the bodily functions stop. So Samantha says, before I coded, I felt really cold and could barely move. Now, good point, Samantha, because a lot of the similarities of out-of-body experience and near-death experience and what happens in clinical death is a paralysis of sorts. So paralysis is experienced in out-of-body experience, and it's also experienced in the death process. So increased weakness in the death process and also loss of reflex. Now, loss of reflex is closer to the end stages of dying, and that's how you know that you're within hours of a person passing on, is they lose the corneal reflex, they'll lose the cough and gag reflex, and then they'll be in a state of paralysis. So the state of paralysis is one of the first experiences that you're going to incur when you have an out-of-body experience. You're going to experience that sleep paralysis where the mind is aware, but the body is unable to respond, or the body is asleep. So let me look through here. Okay, I just want to make sure that I don't have any other questions there. It was really fascinating to see the similarities between out-of-body experience and the actual dying process, because this was very significant. And I noticed this a lot in the ICU populace. When a person was close to passing on, they'll be clutching at things like, and I would have asked them, you know, what are you trying to grab for? But most of the time they would tell me they felt like they were falling and they were trying to hold on to the side rails of the bed to steady themselves. So it's the clutching and the grasping you will notice and you will see, but what's happening is a person is experiencing the feeling of falling or the feeling of floating, and they're trying to steady themselves. And this happened in multiple people that I used to take care of in the ICU. Now, here's another thing that was interesting, is that in near-death experience and in out-of-body projections, this floating or falling feeling is very prevalently recounted by the participants in the studies that I looked at. So these are all three correlations, which is really kind of interesting. So this feeling of falling or floating is in all three occurrences. Another interesting thing that I found was that a lot of my patients would look at the upper right-hand corner of the hospital room. And I feel like, and I did get to experience that a lot of these locations actually contained the energy of the family members that were trying to present themselves to the person who is passing on. So, and it's this disconnection where the person is seeing the other side, but yet they're still required to interact with the here and now. That can get very confusing for the person because they're not really sure which existence is the real one, and they're going to be seeing a lot of confusing things. We call them hallucinations, but I don't feel like they are completely all hallucinations. Let me check for questions. Nicole says she remembered her grandma's presence, those things before she passed. Absolutely. So hey to Jennifer Oliver and Jill Jones, Marion, and Gail, and April, and Lisa, and Jessica. And big shout out to Big Mike Kelly. Good to see you, Guy. Miss y'all. And Amanda Brewer. So Stormy says, we just went through this with a friend's father, is exactly like you're saying. He talked about talking to family who's passed on before him. Hey to Enrique and Yasmin Jadoon. Hey, Yasmin. Yes, it is kind of confusing for the person that is undergoing this transition. Now, like I said, we call them hallucinations. But, and this is just my theory, is yes, they might be hallucinations, but what if the hallucination is there for a purpose? What if the hallucination is presented by the brain in order to make the transition easier for the person who's passing? Maybe there is a physiological reason why those hallucinations are present. Maybe the brain and the spirit energetically need transitioned more smoothly to this other state of being, and the hallucination is something produced in order to make the transition easier. Now, that's just my opinion on it, but to me, it makes sense. Because if you think about it, in a state of energy, when you've completely lost your physical shell and you're presenting yourself as an energetic being, if you present yourself as an energetic being to a person who's still in the physical, they may not recognize you. They need a physical visual to go along with your energy so that they can know what essence is presenting itself in front of them. So the hallucination of the physical might be like a transition thing that has naturally been built into our systems to get us from one state of being to the other. So during this phase where you're passing, and we're going to go into this in part 2 about near-death experiences and this light that is produced that most all people recount during those episodes. And they will recount friends and family stepping out of this light to communicate with them, to greet them, to talk with them about their options. Now, those people that have already passed on, those bodies are long, long gone. So the physical imprint is long gone, but that hallucination helps the person who's in the middle of transition recognize who those people are and what they are trying to do or trying to say at the time when that person is in that transition. So, hey to Linda McCauley and Ethel Martin. And Heather has a comment. Do you have the belief that people wait on certain people to visit them before passing? Yes, absolutely. Have seen that many, many, many times before. Hey to Carrie, Andy, Brooke, and Jenny. What about an abrupt, violent passing like a car crash? Violent, abrupt passings, just in my experience, can cause some confusion to happen. That's why it's really, really important for those friends and family who've already passed on to be present during that time so that they can reorient the person who's passed abruptly. And I think that in a state of light, which these spirits are all in a state of light in the 4th dimension, in a state of light, time ceases to exist. And so what they're getting a vision of, I guess, is a peek at the timeline of the person who's passing. And so they automatically know and have an awareness of the location and where they need to be to present themselves to that person who's passing. So hey to Tenderly, Shay Turner, and Paulette Frost. So Nikki says, I hope my dad and other family, yes, they'll absolutely be there. And that's going to be, we're going to go over this in part 2, but and I think this is the main reason why the person asked for this episode is they want to mainly know where spirits end up, or what drives you forward in your consciousness after you pass on. And that's what we're going to go into in episode 2. So Shelley Holden Brock says her brother passed at home in 2008 of cancer, and my grandson was 3 to 4 at the time, and he said there was angels in the room. Absolutely, Shelley. Children from the age of 2 to 12, 80% of their brainwave state is alpha or theta wave, which is the exact brainwave state that you use for psychic reception, for mediumship. Whenever I do a mediumship, I do a channeled meditation on theta wave for at least an hour, where I go and I write down every single thing that I get in reference to the person that I'm reading for. I go through all of the things that, or all of the spirits that are associated with that person. Then when the person comes in for the mediumship, we go over all the information that was channeled in the previous hour's meditation. So I'm not going on any physical cues or anything like that. It's all channeled before they get there. But it's because you have to use theta wave for that communication, and children are already on that frequency. Now, as they get older and they're paying more attention, as they get older, their brain waves elevate up to beta wave naturally because their focused awareness increases. And so, you know, their input is then changed and they don't see or hear as much at that time. So, hey to Andrea, Gary, Chuck, John Philip Young, April, and Crystal Dale, and Soror Typist. Hi, how are you guys? So please feel free to type in the comments if you have anything you want to say. I want to go over a couple more things before we get on to part 2, and I want to go over a little bit of part 2. So people who have passed on will present to the person who is actively in the dying process. Now, one of the best things that you can do, because it's a scary time, is to really comfort that person, let them know that this process won't last too long and that you're there and it's okay for them to transition and for them not to be afraid and for them to be aware and to look for members of their family or friends in and around the room, and to be open to that communication from those entities that present themselves to that person who's passing. So some other similarities that are found in between OBEs and near-death experience. So I'm just going to go into a couple of more that were all present in all 3 situations. So things that are present in all 3 situations are, number 1, this hallucinatory effect or confusion. Number 2, vibrations or tingling were present in all 3, near-death experiences, OBEs, and the actual dying process. And we're going to go into that a little bit more on part 2. But another thing that's recounted by all 3 groups is a very loud buzzing or humming noise. For me, when I do an OBE and during my NDE, I did hear sounds like a train, like a very loud roaring of a train going by. So let me check for questions here. Hey to Olivia, Pam, Therese, and Betty Jo Coffee. Thanks for joining me tonight. So Joanne has a question. What about people in a coma or induced coma? Do we only transition when our physical body dies? Okay, so people who are in a coma still, their consciousness exists separate than the physical. So even though it's sort of like this sleep paralysis. I'm trying to find a good analogy for you here, where the awareness is there, but the body doesn't work. The awareness knows what's happening underneath, but the body won't respond or can't respond. And let's see, Joanne, clarify the second part of the question. Do we only transition when our physical body dies? Transition, what I'm talking about is just from the physical into the other realm of spiritual energy. So I thought it was very interesting that all 3 of these areas were producing similar effects, like the sleep paralysis or being paralyzed, the confusion or hallucination part of it, the vibrations and the tingling sensations, and then also the buzzing or this humming noise that's associated with all 3 states. Excuse me. So let me check here. Let's see. So Andrea says her heart stopped for 3 minutes and all you remember is blackness. Yes, that can happen. You may not have had enough energy push your astral self out of your body. And I know for some people, it's the process of removing that energy from the body is a little bit more in depth, especially if somebody is very attached to their physical shell and they really want to hang on to it, or they're very grounded in the physical. Somebody who's young, who you know, has zest for life, they're a young parent and they're really active and very grounded in the physical, they're going to have a little bit harder time extravasating, I guess. So hey to Jennifer Malpin. Let's see, Samantha says, I hear what I always say is electricity going through the lines. Yes, that's a very good summation of it, Samantha. I love that. Hey to Lorraine, Christy, and Anton. So Andrea says, since she was 17, started having blackouts that felt coming on. I got about 30 to 45 seconds warning. Long story short, it was finally discovered that only last year my heart was stopping for up to 14 seconds. Wow. That'll shake you up, Andrea. And the interesting thing that I can recount from my personal experience, not only from NDE, but whenever I get like severely ill, like really, really sick, all of a sudden I will find that my energy, my spirit goes out of my body and I find myself in the hallway. And that's a little unnerving because I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Wait a minute, I need to get back in there. So for me, it happens very easily, but I think that it may be like a self-protective mechanism where if I'm so sick, I automatically do it just to not feel the pain that I'm in. So, you know, it can act like that as well. So Stormy says, I had to tell my stepmom that it was okay for her to go, that we would be all right, and she passed right after that. She was in a coma, but the nurse would put the phone up to her ear so she could hear my voice. Absolutely, Stormy, and hearing is one of the last sensations that leave the body. And I want to leave y'all with this thought about that. Let's think about that a little bit, because hearing is a vibration. That's one of hearing and speech are the two most vibratory, resonant things about your energy. So it makes sense to me that hearing would be the last sensation that leaves the physical. So yeah, Andrea says, yes, she was in high school. So you were probably pretty grounded then. So Chantel says she had 2 OBEs. Both times her body was paralyzed. But what bothers her is that normally I always feel for other people. And in those instances I watch, but I was totally not feeling bad at all for the body I was watching mine. And that can be like a, like I was saying about what I do when I get sick is you kind of, it's a self-protective mechanism, I think, sometimes. So Charlotte says, if you really don't have family or real friends, who is waiting to help you transition? Well, that's an interesting thing, Charlotte, because, and it took me a long time to realize this, is there are always entities around you that are loving and kind. You have not had one lifetime, but many, many lifetimes. And the conglomerate of resources available to you is unbelievable. But we only think of one lifetime. We're only thinking one lifetime full of experiences when you have many lifetimes of experiences. And just because you're not currently aware of the entities that are waiting for you doesn't mean they're not there. So everybody has really quite a few. So Andrew says, and I remember that strange buzzing sound a lot when coming to, but I have a pacemaker now, so it doesn't happen anymore. That's awesome. Thanks. So Andrea says, Andrea Shelton says, can people that pass away watch us? Absolutely. They watch us every single day. They look out for us. They watch us. They sometimes the happiest thing that a person wants is just to be around us and to participate in everyday things and share that energy of, you know, our experiences. So yes, they are here and taking part every day. And with that said, our time is up. And tonight we're going to do something different. David! Let me see if I can get him out of the bedroom. So I cooked supper earlier, and I made some cheesy sausage rolls.
Yay.
They're on the Facebook page. And then I made some parsnips with warm blackberry compote. And so what we've been doing is he got this big tray of chocolates from Trader Joe's, in case you guys were wondering where they come from.
Different types of caramels.
Okay. So yeah, so what we've been doing is guessing the flavor of the caramel each night. It's been a lot of fun.
That's how it's set up. They don't tell you what each caramel is. You taste of it, you guess, and then you can look at the bottom of the tray it comes in and find out.
Right. And so we'll see if we can guess, and then we'll let you know what it really is. My meltdown.
God, it's good.
That one tastes like cherry.
I know, but there's not a cherry in there. Let's find out what it is. We don't know tonight. We're stumped.
Last night, I got it right, and the night before I got it right. And for you guys, I can't get it right. Oh my gosh. This one tastes fruity.
Maybe the fig. And number 9 is fig and honey.
It's fig and honey. I knew it tasted fruity, but
fig and honey. Here's the thing.
Here's what the box looks like. Taste test of caramels.
It's been awesome.
And we got it from Trader Joe, or David got it from Trader Joe's.
There's one in here that's strawberry and black pepper.
Oh, that one was not for less, and it was so
really
delicious.
Good. Sounds awful, but it's really good.
It was good. But this is a lot of fun.
Just to go get it,
test yourself. Yeah. So anyway, I'll see you next Monday night for episode 2, where we're going to go into consciousness-driven thought and where that projects your spirit to. So kisses from Kentucky, and I will see you guys next Monday night. Bye.